I think it's a mistake for any elected official in this budgetary environment to reject any options. I see the gubernatorial candidates laying down markers right now, but I don't think anybody realistically believes they can honor those markers. I remember no new taxes and read my lips, and I remember lots of times politicians in the past have said absolutely no, only to find months later a change of perspective or change of heart. So ruling out any revenue sources, increased revenue sources, would be a mistake for a responsible legislator right now, or for a responsible governor. I think probably the most important thing that the state needs to be doing that it hasn't been doing is increasing the school year. Time magazine recently ran a very good piece on the outdated reliance on summer vacations, and as a parent of 3 kids in public schools, I think that's the greatest detriment to public education. Other developed countries around the world are teaching their kids 30 days or more every year than we are.
Go to year-round?
I think ultimately that's where we need to be going. Sure. I mean, the current system was established based on an agricultural society, and I grew up on our farm, so I understood it back then. But my kids and the rest of the kids are not going to go work on the farm in the summertime, and so parents struggle to make sure their kids are occupied and busy and learning. And I'm fortunate because my wife and I have the time and the opportunity to do a little bit of that during the summer, but a lot of parents don't. A lot of parents are taxed to try and make sure their kids don't lose a lot of the momentum and the learning they acquired over the preceding year. Then on top of that, there's just the practicalities. I mean, you've got multi-millions of dollars of structures, investments, janitors, heating and cooling systems that are all operating with no function whatsoever. And we don't lay off the administrative, and we don't lay off the support staff during the summer, so we're operating buildings that are teaching only 7 months out of the year. And my kids are off for, of course, spring break, but now they're also off for Easter. It used to be you got Easter break. Now, because we need to be politically correct, we got rid of Easter break. We call it spring break. But my kids get spring break, and frankly, they still get off Good Friday and and Easter too. Right. And now since then we've added a fall break, which we've got, and of course then we've got Christmas break, which is about a month, and we've got 3 months off in the summer. So you add it all up, and then you add off the days that we have for teacher-parent conferences and training days and so forth. And I think my kids are probably lucky to get 6 or 7 months of teaching out of the year. And when you're ranking among the bottom of the states in the country, and then our country's ranking among the bottom of industrialized nations, it's not hard to figure out that one thing you shouldn't be doing is teaching fewer days every year. That seems to be the starting place. The issue there is, of course, costs, and how you pay for that. But as a matter of policy, I think that's the most important thing. And I could spend, you can tell, hours talking about things we ought to be doing in reforming public ed. I'd probably need to briefly touch on the fact that there's way too much testing. I agree with Diane on that. She's absolutely right. And because of the excess of testing, there's too much effort being made by teachers to teach to the tests. And teachers realize they're being evaluated by test results. The principals are being evaluated by the test results. The superintendents and administration are being evaluated by test results. So the focus is now on getting kids to pass the tests. And it's a very ineffective way of teaching kids. On top of that, I've got 2 kids at Cruces High, and I've got 1 at Zia. They have figured it all out. They know which tests count. The kids in their class know which tests count against them individually. They know which tests are only designed to test the school itself. And when they know that it's a test that's just designed to test the school itself, they don't care. The kids just go in and just mark B down the thing, because as soon as they're done, they get to go to recess, right? Or they get to put on their iPods. And they know the tests don't count against them in terms of their grade or their own academic standing, so they're done in 10 minutes, and they don't care. The teachers and the principal will tell them how important it is to stand up for the school and how to represent the school and so forth, but when the kids have a choice of being done in 10 minutes and putting on the iPod and going to recess or not, a lot of them opt for the recess and the iPod. State spending requires really a reconsideration of our entire tax structure. When Governor Richardson was first running for office 8 years ago, he wisely made this one of his first priorities. He said he was going to convene in his first year of office a Blue Ribbon Tax Committee, and he did so, and he had excellent people on it. And they did a great deal of work and went around the state. John Arthur was on that, Jerry Sandell, I think, and others. You remember it probably, Walt, you're out of your head. So they went around the state, they had public hearings, they gathered a lot of information, they put together a terrific report, and in their report recognized that New Mexico's entire tax structure is antiquated and very ineffective. And we're seeing that now because of the reliance on oil and gas revenues. And so because we have such an overdependence on those revenues, our revenue is sporadic, and unpredictable. So we're constantly having to reevaluate our budget, adjust our budget, get called into special session, and so forth, because the public knows very well that a couple of years ago they were paying $4 and $5 a gallon for gas. Now they're down to $3, and last year it was maybe $2.50 again. So it's not hard to realize that when so much of our state budget is tied to those revenues, it's like passing your home budget and relying on your lottery winnings, every month to do so. It's very ineffective. So Richardson had a good idea. The problem is that he called us in for a special session, and the Blue Ribbon Task Committee's work was immediately rejected by the then legislature. That was a mistake, and the bigger mistake was that we've not revived that work since then. Some of us have tried, but we've been unsuccessful in doing so. So that requires a very comprehensive evaluation wall. For the last 2 years, I have sponsored a bill to try and reestablish what I'm calling a constitutional revision commission, which now we're at our 100-year centennial anniversary of statehood almost, and we're working off of a constitution that's about 100 years old. And I've tried to propose legislation to create a very small group of people, maybe 5 to 7 to 10 individuals, who would be tasked with evaluating our state constitution and comparing it with other state constitutions and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work, and really being prepared to make a very comprehensive overhaul of our entire state constitution. That would allow us to reevaluate how the legislature works. The notion that we meet only in the winter time for 30 and 60 days is again based on farm ranch history. That's why it's a 100-year-old constitution. Legislatures would meet in January and February because there was no crops and there was nothing going on the ranch, right? So that we would meet for 30 days every other year just to do the budget and so forth. All of those things are spelled out in our Constitution, but I think they're antiquated and need a very comprehensive overhaul. That's true whether it's issues regarding taxation, structure and function of government, really just about everything. And because we haven't done that, what happens is every time there's an election, you go into the ballot and you see 10 constitutional amendments that we're leaving to the voters to pass, and expecting people to read whatever it is, a paragraph of new constitutional language while they're in the voting booth, and expecting them to appreciate the issue, understand the issue, and vote on the constitutional amendment. So we're doing it in a piecemeal fashion. So that's the method to get to where I'm talking about, Walt, I think, is reevaluating the Blue Ribbon, taking a look at the entire Constitution, having a group of people really study it and make recommendations, including potentially a constitutional convention. And I've talked to I've talked to Diane about that, and I think that she's interested in pursuing that issue as well. I haven't had a chance to talk to Susanna about it. So that's the revenue side of things. I think your second part was cuts, and your question, where shouldn't cuts be made?
Where would the last place that you would like to make cuts?
Frankly, with the complexity of the state budget, I don't think that I could say there's one area where I'd say this is the last place to make cuts. The easy political answer is public education, but it's a disingenuous commitment, and the gubernatorial candidates are making that commitment now. But I think, as this board probably realizes, about 2/3 of the state budget is in public education, whether it's primary and secondary. So if you say you're not going to cut into public education, you're taking 2/3 of the state budget off the board for cuts. There's no way you're ever going to be able to balance the budget and say that that's an absolute. You have to be prepared to be looking at some cuts in the structure of public education. You can't say that that's off the table entirely. It's not a popular answer in my party, but
Right.
it's a reality.